This is a very special Friday night racing. It is the Wednesday of Irish Grand National Week. Is this Holy Wednesday? I don't know. I'm out of that circle. But we're here to see exactly what goes on behind the scenes, and we're also going to preview the race itself with Barry Geraghty. We're going to walk the last furlong with him. And we're also going to hear from Puppy Power and Nina Carberry about their successes in the race and what they fancy is going to happen. But the race has kind of reached this almost mythic proportion in Irish jumps racing. So Irish jumps racing is the best in the world, and this is the richest race in the Irish jump season. Yeah, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's also a race with an awful lot of history, and we'll hear from obviously the previous winners of the race, but it's basically a glorified graded race now that's a handicap, masquerading as a handicap. 400 grand means an awful lot to the owner of the winner, but also to the jockey and to a trainer who might want to be expanding his or her yard. And it just has so much prestige, this race, partly because of the prize money, but to my mind, mainly because of its local heritage and also the fact that it has so much history. It goes back way beyond the Easter Rising when they came in here from some of the soldiers would have come here and gone back to Dublin and the place is in ruins. That's how far back this race goes.
It's called the Dubs Day Out back in the day. Yeah, well look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get some expert opinion and yours about what we think is going to happen in the race. Hey, here you go. And let's bring you some top quality horse racing content.
Let's go.
Right, as we said, it is a very special Friday night racing for you. We're at Fairyhouse Racecourse because the Fairyhouse Easter Festival takes place all weekend this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and of course Easter Monday with the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. It is the richest jumps race in the country with prize money of 400 grand. Racing off the ball, of course, is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. We've got Nina Carberry and Robbie Power with us to help preview this. How are you both doing?
Very good, thank you.
How are you?
Good to have a race this year, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Fantastic, yeah. Big loss last year, missing out in the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National, but no, looking forward to it this year. Make it even more special.
When do you find out exactly what your own situation in the race is? How late before that all gets decided, Robbie?
Final decks in the morning, and we'll have a full idea then of the 30 runners in the race and what's going to be top weight and how much the weights are going to change if they do or if they don't. So we'll know all in the morning.
How much influence do you as a jockey have over that? How much do you try and have over it?
You can't influence that. That's I have two options in the race. One if the weights go up and one if the weights don't go up. So we'll just wait and see. Obviously I can't do 10 stone, so that's taken out of my hands. So if the weights don't go up, I can't ride the 10 stone horse on the other horse, and if the weights do go up, then I ride the 10 stone horse for my boss.
Right, okay, so it's like I imagine slightly annoying where you're just waiting for this to happen, or do you get used to it?
It's more annoying if you're waiting for this to happen and you don't have a ride in the race. I have a ride either way, so I'm not too fussed.
It's not going to be 50-50.
Yeah.
Nina, your family's history with this race is pretty special, and obviously I didn't realise, but this is your local track.
Yeah, just up the road. It's only 5 miles up the road from us, so yeah, no, great memories here.
How many of your family haven't won the race?
No, we've got a good record in it anyway. So Peter John has a lot of pressure now to try and get a ride in the race now. So he's probably the last one to try and win it. When
you were growing up, was it a special day? Was it a special occasion? Was it something that would have been marked in the calendar properly?
Yeah, definitely. When Bobby Joe came here to run in it, it was a big excitement in our house, and this is a place where we used to come as kids on Easter Monday and religiously, and yeah, as kids we just loved having a few little bets. And when Bobby Joe was in it, I was down by the last fence beside the railings, wasn't near my mum or dad, don't know where they were, and I was with Sasha Garrett, who's Barry's sister, and yeah, we were roaring home Bobby Joe, and we had a few quid on him. So I'd say it was only probably 10 or 11. So no, it was a great day, and I'll always remember that.
That's the thing in Ireland. You can go up to the tote, and they'll be like, yeah, you're with your parents. It's grand. Good times.
That's all our memories, I think, of the first few times. So how aware are you of the family history going all the way back, though? Like, is that something that kind of gets spoken about, or is it kind of actually just part of life?
Oh no, definitely. It's an amazing, like, the history goes back to my granddad, Dan Moore. So my uncle Arthur won it on King's Sprite, and my dad, Brown Lad, and
they're all his jockeys.
Yeah.
Who trained Brown Lad?
Brown Lad was Drapers, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's
Drapers,
right. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, no, it goes back. No, it's great to be a part of it. It's great to be on the list of the winners.
And so, did you feel pressure when you were riding in the race?
Not so much pressure, but I definitely felt a little bit of pressure before I schooled this lad, and I couldn't hold one side of him. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get him around, but as soon as we got him going, then it didn't feel like pressure at all. It was just get him around, and hopefully we'll be bang there.
Well, let's have a look at this, because this is your victory in the race, right? So organised confusion in 2011 is what we're looking at here. What's particularly noticeable here is that there's a loose horse, right?
Yeah.
And it's right up at the front, and you're kind of beside him. Are you aware that it's a loose horse? Are you?
Yeah, he's kind of a half a length in front of me, but he helped me the whole way to the line. As soon as my lad hit the front, he was a bit idle, but the loose horse came along and helped him to get to the line.
So you use the loose horse as...
Yeah, I was lucky enough I was on his inside, so I wasn't worried about getting carried out, but that'd be the only worry, he'd get carried out before the fence.
Right. The fact that you actually win the race by a massive amount, it's kind of difficult I think, for the crowd and for the commentator to see just how dominant the win is. When are you confident that you're actually going to win the race?
Turning in, I felt I had a chance because he'd saved plenty around, and it's a long old trip. It's 3 miles 6, is it? And I was happy enough that I'd saved enough the whole way around that we could go quite well up the straight. So started picking them off, and he jumped the last well and stayed on. He'd lightweight too. He'd only 9:13, 9:12 in his back, so that helped too.
So like a couple of 100 yards out that it's going to happen?
Coming to jump in the last, I said he's not going to stop anyway, so they're going to have to come out of the clouds to get me. So I was happy enough jumping the last. If I got over, I'd be happy enough.
And can you enjoy that then a little bit more than if it's a short head?
Only when you pass the line, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, okay. And the fact that it's a home crowd as well, fairly sensational.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was an incredible hot day. It was 21 degrees, I think, and the crowds coming in, sure, everyone was outside, and great atmosphere. And I suppose it was a lot of local people here for me, and my uncle Arthur as well. And it was a great win, and a lot of people cheered us in.
You made the comparison a little bit earlier on, and I thought it was good when you win locally like this.
Yeah, like it must be nearly like, a fellow who wins in All Ireland for the county, but winning here is like winning for your club, like winning a club All Ireland where it's your own people and it's something you've dreamt of since you were a kid. Like this is your local thing. Yeah,
like I'd say a few people have bets as well, So when I came into the winners' enclosure, all I can remember was all the people standing outside on the balconies outside, and just people everywhere. So I haven't experienced that other than Cheltenham or something like that, or Punchestown. So no, it was amazing. It was amazing atmosphere for me.
I suppose as well, when it brings you back to your past, that you were a kid. This is one of my first memories as being at Fairyhouse.
Yeah, like it just brought Bobby Joe all back to me, and it was so nice to ride the winner, and.
Trying, you'd been on him the year before.
Oh, I was actually I'd never ridden him before.
Okay.
I'd ridden Rogue Angel before, and I came off him.
Got the year wrong.
And he won the following year. I was on the right one, but wrong year.
And you fell off him.
Came off him, yeah.
Right, and there was another one that didn't start for you at one point.
Yeah, one didn't start. Yeah, so fortunately.
Do they stick with you, those ones, or are you actually, because the game is about losing as much as it is about winning for jockeys?
Yeah, like obviously you want to be part of jumping off, not jumping off, you want to be a part of the whole thing. So it was a pity that day. And Rogue Angel, just one of those things, and what can you do? You just have to get over these things and hope you'll have another go. Yeah,
and luckily you did. Robbie, what your story I think is a little bit different. You're riding a very short price favourite to win the National. Does that bring pressure? I know you're not supposed to kind of pay too much attention to the outside stuff, and you've got your job to do irrespective of what the price on the horse is, but at the same time everybody in the crowd probably was on you.
Yeah, they probably were, and he was owned by a small family as well. He was a homebred horse, and I think that year there was 14 or 15 Gigginstown runners in the race, and everyone, the general public, were hoping for anything but Gigginstown to win the race. And I actually had huge confidence in our Duke that year in the Irish Grand National. I thought, bar accidents, he wouldn't get beat, and the big worry was the first 3 fences for me, because he was a novice, and novices have a great record in the Irish National. To get him over the first 3 fences with a bit of room, bit of confidence, and then everything would involve after that.
So it's almost just get him into a rhythm so that he can start to feel comfortable, and then you'll feel comfortable after that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing Jessica Carney had said to me going out was jump the first 3 fences on the wide outside, with loads of room and then see where you are after that.
Right.
Would that be a problem for you then? Because like say Nina's on about she's saving ground the whole way in organised confusion, and you like say if you kind of you lose your ground, or you lose your posse then, but your boss is kind of saying, well, this is how to do it. Like,
No, well, that was what I planned. I thought he'd plenty up his sleeve, handicap wise.
you're that confident.
Yeah, and it's a straight line from when you jump off up to Ballyhack is a straight line, so you're not going to give away too much ground. Bar you get a bad jump and you end up sort of back in mid-division, stuck on the wide outside with a wall of horses inside you. But he jumped the first 3 fences really well, and we'd gone a good gallop, a little bit strung out, so I was able to slot in 4th or 5th.
Perfect.
Perfect. It couldn't have worked out better, yeah.
We can watch the end of it here, I think, as well. So.
Yeah, we'd gone a real good gallop all the way, and I was in my comfort zone the whole way. And from the turn in the whole way up the straight, all I was thinking was 3 nice jumps, and this is over. I couldn't see anything coming out of the pack.
Here the Jigglesdown horse is coming now.
It's absolutely dominant as well, isn't it? Like, it's a massive win.
He was a horse that had won a Grade 1 and been second in a Grade 1 as a novice, and as I said, novices have a great record in the race, so as I felt going out barring accidents, he couldn't get beat, and he wasn't the most natural jumper in the world, so he had to he learned a lot as the season went on jumping wise, but on the day then just different. He was a Grade 1 horse. I know he never went on to achieve what he did because he had health problems, but he was a Grade 1 horse in a handicap.
Is that the type of horse you want for the race? Like, because the more experienced you are, maybe the more exposed you are.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, that's why novices have such a good record in the race, because they've been gaining experience through the whole season. We're at the back end of the season. They're 1 race away from becoming a second season novice and more a fully fledged handicapper. And a horse like our Duke, who had won a Grade 1 and was second in a Grade 1, probably the best thing ever happened to him was getting beaten in the Grade 1 over 2 mile 5. Because then the handicapper didn't see him as a genuine Grade 1 horse, maybe, I don't know, but we did. And that's what you're looking for in the race. That's what I look for in the race every year, is a horse coming through. Like latest exhibition has a very high, similar profile to our Duke. He won a Grade 1 and was second in second in 2 Grade 1, sorry, behind Monkfish. But he's the same races he ran in that our Duke ran in.
And it's a big dilemma for Paul Nolan, because he can target a Grade 1 or he can go for the Grand National, and I would argue he should go for the Grand National, but now that Envoy Len isn't taking him on, it's kind of difficult. So like him and Tiger Roll, there are these decisions to be made
in terms of actually running in the race.
Yeah, because like I'd agree with Poppy, really, for a horse like latest exhibition, running up the arse as it is of Monkfish so often, you know, he doesn't have that proper superstar to deal with here, and to win a national with the prize money and the prestige, he may never have as good a chance again. That'll be my attitude, I suppose.
He definitely won't have as good a chance to win a big handicap again, I wouldn't have thought. And I would think the Nolans and everyone involved in this exhibition see him as more of a Grade 1 horse than a handicapper. I know he's bumped into Monkfish a couple of times, but if he's going to be a Grade 1 horse, he wants to be able to win an Irish Grand National off the rating he has, whether he ends up at 11 stone 10, our Duke at 11 stone 4. But if he'd 11-10 that year, it would have made no difference. He still would have won.
So why wouldn't you run him?
Because he'd be a shorter price in the Grade 1, because Envoy Len isn't there. But
he's only novice once.
Yeah, but it's an Irish national, you know. And you look back on the prestige of the race. Like, I always think of looking at the footage of the Easter Rising going back to 1916. That happened around obviously Easter weekend, and like the crowds coming back and forth from the races. That was a big part of the madness in Dublin at that time. The race has so much history in terms of people going racing to Fairyhouse, and it's so close to the capital city as well. Whereas I think with all due respect to the other races, latest exhibition will go down in memory forever if you won an Irish national, whereas he mightn't if he won a Grade 1.
The Grade 1 race is no penalty kick for him either.
Yeah,
it's a competitive race over a much shorter trip than ideal for him.
Yeah.
He looks like a horse that's crying out for this trip, and yes, he's going to have a big weight in his back, but if he's a Grade 1 horse, then he should be able to carry it.
Even against Tiger Roll, if Tiger Roll stays in?
If Tiger Roll stays in, then he's going to have a perfect weight. He'd definitely run. He's at 10-13. He definitely runs in the race.
I wouldn't. I think Tiger Roll, I wouldn't fancy him at all in this race, to be honest. But I think for everyone else to be hoping that he runs.
Why don't you fancy him?
We just were down at the fences there. They're not his fences. You know, they've made Aintrie's fences into a totally different test for a horse. Bobby Joe, when he won it, totally different ball game. Tiger Roll is suited to the cross country course, and Aintree, his record in conventional chases like around here, he wouldn't be mapped in the race for me.
So what's the difference between these fences?
Robbie would be the man to maybe explain. But
they're much stiffer than your cross-country fences or your even your national fences. Now, your national fences to look at are Aintree National are much more daunting in that, but these are made of proper birch. They're a lot more forgiving than they were 10 years ago. They're not as stiff as they were,
Even
but
here.
but they still are a much more difficult jump than the ancient national fences.
So you need to be a really good jumper.
Yeah, and I think the thing as well with Tiger Road is a good jumper. He's won 2 Grand Nationals, so we can't say that, and he's won 4 or 5 cross-country races. But it's the change in variety as well that keeps a horse like Tiger Road's mind occupied, and you don't have that change of variety in an Irish Grand National because every fence is the same apart from the couple of ditches. So the change in variety is what keeps him going, and the spruce on the entry fences is something that keeps his mind interested.
Okay, that's interesting. That kind of the nuances of this that we just don't really know from the outside. Certainly,
we'll see when the likes of like Bobby Joe and the National was a totally different test for a horse. Like they've just made it at Aintree. They've made it because of animal rights issues, like, which is fair enough, but it's just you can go through it. And we saw down at the fence there at the last, like, you're not going to brush through that. You make a mistake, you're going to pay the price. And I hope he runs in the race in terms of the spectacle, and it would be utterly amazing if he ran because the year that was in it. But yeah, I think he'll just set it up for somebody else weights-wise.
Okay, we have a Fairyhouse Easter Festival gift bag to give away. It includes a signed picture of Burrows Saint by Ruby Walsh and Willie Mullins, the 2019 winner of the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. There's a Lear chocolate Easter egg with Fairyhouse and Boyle Sports merchandise as well, and 2 tickets for the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National 2022. To win, answer this question. How many times has Ruby Walsh won the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National? Text your name and answer to 53106 for 30 cents. And the best of luck to that. You can enter as many times as you want, of course. We've got Nina Carberry and Robbie Power with us, our guests this week, on a very special Friday night race and previewing the Easter Monday Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. Nina, what do you like in this race?
Latest exhibition for me. I definitely go for this race. The Novice, he's not far off a Grade 1 horse over fences, and definitely he's in with a big shout if Tiger Roll wins.
Right.
Or runs, sorry, runs.
What is it about that horse that you like so much?
I just like I think he's just a national horse. I think the extended trip as well is going to suit him. I think down the line he looks like an English national horse to me. And I think the Novice record in this race is phenomenal, and they can't get away from it.
The Novice record in the race is so great because you were saying essentially they're kind of already into next season at the end of this season, that they've matured over the course of the year. Is that why traditionally we see the novices do so well?
Definitely, yeah. They've run up a sequence of 4 or 5, maybe even 6 runs since last October. They've gained plenty of experience. Cocoa Beach is another one. Run Wild Fred. They've already have run in handicaps. They ran in the Thyestes. They were first and second in the Thyestes. So they have as much experience, nearly as much experience as some of the more seasoned campaigners. And they could be just flying that little bit below the radar because they're a novice. And
again, these are the progressive horses that next year should go on to be even better still.
Yeah, and as long with that as well, the Irish Grand National has a great record with novices. The horses going on from the Irish Grand National, like Bobby Joe, to win an Aintree Grand National, the likes of a Cocoa Beach or Run Wild Fred, some of them horses could be next season then targeted at the Aintree Spectacle.
Okay, so this is really important.
Well, yeah, Bobby Joe, like, I'm from East Galway, where he was obviously owned by the Burkes, and Bobby Joe, he didn't stop his winning in the Irish National, which we'll all remember. And I remember when, you know, there was a statue erected to Bobby Joe, which people may or may not mount after a few pints at the local pub. In fact, a couple of characters have actually gotten stuck in frosty weather to the horse. But like, Nina, that was unbelievable for, like, because I wasn't even into racing at the time, and I remember the horse came to the school, and like, I think it's really understated how something like that, what that means to rural Ireland, particularly East Galway, which wouldn't have that many horses. Like,
yeah, like, it was incredible. Like, he beaten Papillon here the year before in '98, and went on then to run an Aintree, and he ran on 10 stone, I think, and a stone out of handicap. Say it's first winner since Liscargo, an Irish winner. So, like, it wasn't heard of Irish horses going over and winning the national. And then after that, then it just took off. It was a trend. There was Papillon, Monty's Pass, number 6 Valverde. There was just
Silver Birch.
It just started off. Sorry, Silver Birch. Don't forget.
Under a little-known Gordon Elliott at the time. Yeah, he's first winner in. He hadn't had a winner in Ireland at the time.
Yeah, so it just it was great. It was Bobby Joe started the trend off, and he was a hero.
It's funny when we look back and the moments that have kind of got us to the point where we've just had the absolutely dominant Cheltenham festival that we've had, is some of it about self-confidence, as much as obviously the money and the horses and the owners and the quality of the trainers, but the confidence to go and say, well, actually, we can compete with the best in the world.
I suppose we're competing every day here in the best in the world, so we definitely have a chance. I suppose what's the point of being afraid? You might as well take your chance. You're not in, you can't win. So I think we're very competitive here. We'll be competitive in the big stages over in England anytime.
On that, Puppy, like how do you compare riding over there and in Ireland? Like, because it is like when you have a 23-5 victory for the Irish, like you could argue that the best trainers, horses and jockeys are all in Ireland to a large extent. Or do they ride races differently over there? Is it almost like a different standard riding over there?
A little bit. It's a lot tighter in Ireland, a lot more competitive on a day-to-day basis compared to in England. Can be a little bit more forgiving riding wise. They ride much tighter over here, but that's because the racing here is so competitive. And you have Gordon Elliott, Willie Mullins, Noel Meade, Jessica Harrington, Henry de Bromhead, top class trainers with now top class horses, because the prize money is so strong over here, and it's very, very hard to compete, and a lot of people have found it difficult here to compete, but all you've got to do is keep going, as it was shown with Paul Hennessy having a big winner in Cheltenham, that you will get a chance to get that horse. And the standard of racing over here on a daily basis and every Sunday is much better than the standard of racing in England. When you think the Tolworth Hurdle is the first grade one of the year run in Sandown, the prize money was 17,000. I won a listed hurdle race here for 4-year-olds only, worth 22,000. That's not right, and that's why English racing, in my opinion, is sliding down the ladder, because the prize money is not there. And Cheveley Park are an English-based company, yet the majority of their horses are in Ireland.
I suppose the other thing about this race, what he's alluding to there, is that like smaller trainers can and do win this race, as much as it's a 400 grand race. You have like Dot Love winning the race, James Motherway winning the race, obviously going back to Nina's dad, Sandra Hughes won it, obviously Mouse Morris won in recent years, who wouldn't necessarily have that many good horses now, and it can, like, even Paul Nolan, it's not by any means a race that'll be dominated necessarily by the big yards.
Anybody but Chickenstown was the line of the day so far. But I actually remember looking back at that race as well, and you could just see there was kind of this swarm of the one colour, this one here, and like when that happens, when there is that phalanx of them, are you conscious of that? That like, I'm sure they're not all riding together, but there's probably a pacemaker in the middle of that that's designed to run the race in a specific way. Do you have to think about that, or do you just let the race unfold the way it's going to unfold anyway?
Yeah, you have to have an idea going out of what's going to happen in a race. In a race like the Boys Sports Irish Grand National, you have 30 runners. So many are going to go forward. They mightn't all necessarily be the one ownership horse that are going forward, but you're going to have an idea of what's going forward, what sort of pace is on in the race. It quite often happens nowadays that doesn't happen as much, that the races aren't strongly run. So you need to know in your own mind have an idea of how strongly this race is going to be run.
That's interesting. Why does it not happen as much nowadays?
It just has happened a few times. If you get a horse towards the top of the handicap, like the big handicap chase in Leopardstown this year, Willie won it. Paul Townend dictated
Western,
from the front. I can't think of his name. But
he took it up and he was a bit free, but he just dominated.
And then he stopped the race in front. He thought he was on the best horse in the race. He was top weight, and he slowed everything down to suit himself.
Castlebawn West.
That was it. Yeah. So
it's very interesting you say that, though, because if you're a jockey and you're calf on a hold-up horse, you are a prisoner, and it's like it is a race, but it could just go completely, go wrong basically for you, and like you might want a horse that's handy then, and you're going way too hard.
Yeah, that's it. So you have to have an idea going out in your head of, like, say to your trainer, because we all presume 30 runners, competitive handicap, the race is going to be strongly run. That mightn't be so. So you have to have an idea going out in your head that this mightn't happen. If you're riding a hold-up horse, this mightn't be that strongly run. We'll have to ride him a little bit closer. We've no choice.
And if you ride like Nina did in the race, you're a prisoner to a horse falling in front of you, basically. So you have all these gambles that you're taking. If you're going up the inner to save ground, that's grand. But if a horse falls in front of you, there's not much you can do.
I was quite lucky that year because they were doing the drains here on the track. That 10 years ago now, and they moved the whole track in, so there was only allowed 27 runners, I think, at the time, so it's a little bit easier probably going down the inside then.
That was obviously on
No,
purpose?
it wasn't really, but it just worked out that way. When you look back on the race, God, there's loads of room, do you know what I mean?
Right.
When you look back, like I was in a novice as well, and you think where I was going, God, but I actually had a horse, a new story in front of me, and the last Derby, who were great handicappers, you know.
Proper,
So
consistent
I couldn't have
swords,
been in
yeah.
a better place, you know. So
How much of that was by design? What was the plan going out?
I did want to follow something like that. So once I had that, then and we jumped over the first couple and we got into rhythm, then I was away, you know. But there is times that you need the horse to be brave and to jump well. And there was a particular time, I think 5 out, we got sandwiched and he came up and he got me out of trouble and we were fine then after that. But there is particular times that in the race, I think Puppy would agree that you do need the horse to be brave and to know what he's at.
Yeah, do you remember like when General Principle won the race? Like I know when you talk about a race over 3.5 miles, where it's literally, and that was on atrocious ground, I think, and there's about like a metre and a half separating 3 or 4 horses at the line. Like it's an incredible test, Nina, as well. I'd say in terms of like also the horse has to be, he can't be claustrophobic or she can't be claustrophobic. You have to deal with the crowd most years. Yeah. And then obviously you have to get into a rhythm as well and stay and have a bit of class.
Yeah, you have to stay the extended trip. Like a lot of these horses wouldn't have gone above 3 miles, so the likes of Tiger Roll and not have. And I definitely think latest exhibition is crying out for an extended 3 miles, something like that.
He hasn't gone that trip, but I'd be like Nina, I can't see that being a problem. The only issue I might have with him is he can jump a bit to his left. But Paul Nolan, I mean, if he runs here, he's going to run here regardless of what race. Yeah. So will he get away with it in either race? It's probably not enough an issue to stop him, but stamina I think is going to be the key for him as well if he runs.
Okay, we've got a €100 charity bet for the 4 of us from Boyle Sports. It's €100 on the nose or 50 each way for the Boyle Sports Irish Grand National. Boyle Sports are paying out on the first 7 places in the Grand National this Easter Monday. So an each way bet might be a good way to go for our charity. All the money raised is going to be donated to Darkness into Light for PA the House, which obviously normally takes place at Fairyhouse Racecourse as well as various spots around the country. Nina, I have a fair idea you're going for latest exhibition.
Yeah. If he lines up, yeah, he'd be for me.
Okay, is there just in case to cover ourselves, if latest exhibition doesn't line up, what else do you like?
Something probably at the bottom, like Brace Yourself. He's been knocking on the door here and there, and I think the better ground for him might help him.
Okay, what do you like about Brace Yourself? He's a big price, 33s roughly.
Yeah, I just think if he creeps into the bottom, the better ground could improve him, and I definitely think he'd stay the extra trip as well.
Okay.
Just for a big outsider.
We do like a big outsider in the show, to be honest. And if one of them would ever come in, Johnny, that'd be great. What do you like, Robbie?
Again, it's very, very competitive, as you'd expect, and with a little bit of value, a horse, a novice again, that's coming forward, and Boyle Sports paying first 7 places, or paying 7 places this year. I think Farclas, second to Cocoa Beach in the Fiesta, has loads of experience. Oh, sorry, not Farclas, Run Wild Fred. I think he'll stay. I think the drying ground will suit him, and I can see him reversing form with Cocoa Beach definitely. So I think each way, first 7 places, he's a great chance. He's in around 10s at the moment when we're recording this. So Run Wild Fred, what do you like about Run Wild Fred? What is it? There's a progression, and it's a novice, and that's the prototype horse that we can talk about. He ticks a lot of the boxes. Trip, I can't see being a problem. I think drying ground will suit him. He has loads of experience, having had a run in the handicap, which not a lot of the novices are lucky enough to have had this season. He has that, and I think Run Wild Fred at 10-1 is a decent good each way bet. Okay, what do you like?
Yeah, I think that in fairness to 7 places, like you can probably sort of rule out a few of them, so that does narrow it down a bit. And you know, there are going to be a lot of people who will be enjoying the winner crossing the line, but will be sort of frantically waiting to see what's 5th, 6th and 7th, because you'll have back one of them, you know. The Big Dog for me is a horse I've followed for a while. He's perfect for the race, except the ground might be, as Barry said, might be.
So not everybody will have seen this. We did a piece with Barry Geraghty as well, which you can check out on our social channels, where we walked the from the last.
Barry was wearing very, very nice Brown Thomas shoes, so he wasn't really willing to get it into the ground.
My feet are saturated by
that. Yeah, but it isn't. It's not by any means overly testing compared to other Grand Nationals, and we've had warm weather in the last sort of few days in Ireland, so that's a small bravado. The Big Dog is well named. He's just gorgeous big horse. Love the way the stamina the last day when he won readily despite a bad mistake at the last. Just mentioned a couple of others. Longhouse Poet, obviously Martin Brassel, Nina mentioned, won the race. I was up at Joseph O'Brien's during the week. Half of the yard were telling me Simpo was going to win. Half of the yard were telling me his stable mate Home by the Lee was going to win. So
there's money for Sempo at this stage. It's about 7-1. Run Wild Fred is about 10.
Interesting on that, Robbie. Like, he's a maiden going into the race. But again, like Sempo could be the class act for a horse that, like, he hasn't actually won a race over fences. I'd be worried with a horse like that just like you can't get away with a mistake necessarily in this race. But
Comanche Court one.
as a maiden, yeah.
The maiden
I
wouldn't
wouldn't worry
surprise me.
too much.
Sempo's jumping would be a little bit of a concern for me. A big field. You need a horse with a bit of size and scope, and as Nina says, that's going to be brave for you. That would be my concern about Sempo. You need a horse that's going to fight his corner in a 30-runner field.
I got the impression Joseph was nearly sweeter on home by the Lee, who can jump the right way here. He can jump slightly to his right, but that won't be an issue, and he stays all day. Fame and Glory horse.
I rode home by the Lee here in the Drimmore behind Envoy Allen, and he travelled well to the turn into the straight, and actually came back in and said to Joseph afterwards, this lad could be an Irish Grand National
There
horse.
you go.
I think he ticks a lot of boxes for the race.
Okay.
Ground will suit him, and he'd definitely stay the trip. He could be good each way value.
It's possible he nearly half spared him for the race since then, because he's never going to be down violin, but at least you're jumping around a pace and you get a sighter for Fairyhouse, and Robbie Power is rarely wrong. So
Rarely right.
Around about 12s is the shortest price, and as big as 20 with some places home by the league for that one. So
you get a good price as well. Like there's a big debate now at the moment about the prices the bookmakers are offering on the show. So if you want to get your 7 each way places, don't be afraid to back 5 minutes before the race. You'll get the guaranteed odds. You'll get very competitive prices on this race.
was there anybody else you wanted to talk about?
In terms of the race itself, obviously Longhouse Poet is very interesting for Martin Brassel. I'm with Nina though. I think Lace Exhibition should run. I was involved in a horse who ran this race, and he was 25 or 33 to 1. But it was just a great buzz. Like, there were 10 or 12 of us involved. It was an unbelievable buzz. I know it's not the same this year, but to my mind, the Irish National is such a spectacle. Like, it's such a long race, there's so much jumping, and to be involved in a horse, and I know the lads bought the horse, to keep him in the yard and so forth. It's a real Wexford story. I think, to me, there's no comparison to the Irish National in terms of the other races at Fairyhouse this weekend. I'd be all over going for him if I owned him.
With the exception of Longhouse Polo, I think is a very, very promising horse as well, and probably has disappointed a little bit over fences this season, which could mean he's well handicapped. When you look down through the field of runners, I think that Lace Exhibition is the only horse in the race that could possibly be a Grade 1 horse next season. When he steps up to the next level.
He's definitely a Grade 1 horse, because if he was a Grade 1 horse over hurdles.
Well, there's a big difference in a Grade 1 novice and a Grade 1 season
proper
horse.
next season.
Proper next season. But I think Lace Exhibition is the one horse that could be the Grade 1 horse next year.
And it was interesting, because he didn't go to Cheltenham because there were a few factors in that. Obviously, he was going to take on Monkfish. The crowd wasn't going to be there and all that. But Paul Nolan told me the other day, when he ran him the second day at Leopardstown, he's a really light shell of a horse. He just couldn't back up his previous run at Leopardstown. So the break that they've given him since will have him perfect for this.
To try and...
Yeah, just because he just doesn't have the physical frame to back up a quick run. Also, and I think this is a point that should be made, he's probably a bit sick of running up the backside of Monkfish at this stage. So to give him a break, get his confidence back, there's no Monkfish here.
And if you think this horse is a Grade 1 horse, then you're supposed to frank that by putting in a performance here against the field when you have the opportunity to.
Yeah, exactly. And as Johnny alluded to, he was second to Monkfish a couple of times, so going to Cheltenham wasn't an option. Same thing with our Duke. The Cooper family didn't want to travel to Cheltenham that year. They thought the horse wouldn't be ready for it to go to Cheltenham. Where was the obvious target? Boys Sports Irish Grand National, $500,000 prize money. Where else would you want to go? And he's the horse that ticked all the boxes. So I think Lace Exhibition, to me, reminds me a lot of what our Duke did.
Okay. Nina, any other childhood memories of this? Like, because we were just chatting on the way up about the competition in your family must have been pretty severe.
Yeah, like Philip it was great. I was actually on, I think it was Star Clipper the year Philip won on Point Barrow for Pat Hughes. That was a great memory. Well, great for to watch Philip winning, and Paul, I say, wasn't too far behind, so the two of us were able to go up and congratulate him. That'll always be in my memory. And
the three of you were in that race?
Three of us, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so it was great to see him win, and so like it's just brilliant that the three of us were able to go and be a part of history and to keep the family tradition going.
What was Paul's first win in the race?
Bobby Joe.
Bobby Joe,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so he got off.
So you were only 10 or 12?
He
Right.
got off one of Noel's. He was stable jockey to Noel at the time, and Noel had Heist in it. And lucky enough for Dad that Noel let Paul off to ride Bobby Joe, because I don't think anyone would have ridden Bobby Joe the way Paul rode him, so it was lucky for us that we got Paul that day.
Say that about a lot of things Paul Carberry rode.
Well, we were talking to Barry Geraghty afterwards, and he was like, look, I knew I had the best horse in the race. We were travelling so well early on. I was in third gear. Everybody else was kind of struggling away in fourth or fifth. Was Bobby Joe the class horse in the race?
It was a very good race. Papillon was second, and I think Call of the Day was in it. No, I think I think went on to win a Whitbread as well. So it was a very, very, very good Irish national. And no, he was only just got up at the end. You know,
Nice.
He looked like he was trying to get by him, but he looked like he had him easy up the straight. But he took him a while to get by him. But thank God we have Paul in him anyway.
That's very sensational to be a part of that and to kind of see that whole thing come together.
Yeah, and to look back and see, you know, and what other horses did out of the race. You know, it was a very special race.
How for you winning the Irish National? Obviously, you know, we saw the celebrations. You have a little moment where you know you're going to win the race. What's that? How does that compare with winning any of the other big races that you've won?
The Irish National was a race I always wanted to win. Like Nina's, Fairyhouse is my local track. I'm a bit further away than she is, but it's 10 or 12 mile away. I was here when Desert Orchid and Richard Dunwoody won to see Desert Orchid up the straight. You walked out of Fairyhouse. I want to be here someday doing this. And I'd had a few cracks at it. Oscar Time was second to Blue Sea Cracker. I think I'd ridden 2 or 3 favourites in the race for Jessie that had disappointed. And you always thought that this race was the one that was going to elude you. And then our Duke came along, and it was just a huge relief and fantastic to be part of the history of the race as well. That it's probably the most iconic race in Ireland. So to be part of that was amazing.
The relief, obviously, particularly when you ride a favourite, and it's at the end of a period where you haven't won and you've been on favourites before, must be great. But then I presume the celebrations are specific and local and totally different to when you come home from Cheltenham or when you come home from Aintree.
It was a bit different back then when I won it, because back in them days they had Easter, we'd raced on the Tuesday as well, so you had a quiet night. This year it's Monday and there's no racing on the Tuesday, so
No bars are open.
and there's no bars open unfortunately this year, but I can guarantee you if there was no racing on the Tuesday when I won it, there would have been big parties.
And so it does, again, I think it's the whole grassroots element of racing that has definitely come to the fore over lockdown. Like, it is a massive, important part of life in this area. You know, you're driving up and it's like driving up to any of the tracks, is that you see that the whole hinterland is actually full of people who are involved in racing. So,
But you see it in a normal year, obviously it's a bit different this year, but in a normal year all the windows in Dunshaughlin, Ratoath are all done up. Huge efforts put in to paint their windows to something relevant to the Irish Grand National. It's a massive effort goes in the local community for the whole race, and as I say, this is Ireland's race. It's an iconic race.
yeah, and so winning that must be more special, I guess.
Very special special race.
Especially with the prize money it is now as well.
Yeah, that helps.
Like, you're not going to sniff at 40 grand or whatever it is, the jockey, like, so, yeah. Another factor for Paul Nolan to consider, you know, is he does get a nice prize if they win this, and it all helps when you're trying to grow your operation.
No, absolutely. I did want to ask you one last question about Cheltenham and just the absolute success that both Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore had. What was it like to to see that firsthand, just the explosion that the two of them have had as a partnership?
Oh, it was phenomenal. But going to Cheltenham this year, Henry and Rachel, I know a lot of the pressure was taken off them because everyone was focusing on Willie Mullins and Paul Townend with the string of runners he had and the book of rides that Paul Townend had. But Rachel had equally as good a book of rides, and Henry had as equally as good chances, slightly strengthened with the likes of Envoy Allen and Quilixios as well. So, but to win the champion hurdle, the champion chase and the Gold Cup, they were horses he had anyway. They weren't horses he received a fortnight before Cheltenham. They were horses he had anyway. That's a phenomenal training performance. Never been done before.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's never been done before. Like,
it is. And
Like,
like
to win the Gold Cup as well, like, just to
win
cap
the
it
first
off.
and second in the Gold Cup. Rachel did everything right all week, bar one thing. She picked the wrong horse in the Gold Cup, and as much you could see the anguish on her face when she pulled up after crossing the line. She was damn.
What would you have gone for?
I would have gone with exactly what she went with.
Of course.
I think, and I always look when you're making a decision in a race, which will I be more sick
If it were second.
if it wins?
Yeah.
And she had the decision to make. Absolute Hard was coming off the back of a very, very good performance in the Savills Chase at Christmas, and Manel Indo, slightly disappointing run in the Irish Gold Cup. So you've got to go with the form. The horses were both in great form at home. Henry was very happy with them, and she made a punt and it went the wrong one.
The worst thing about it was as well
Ruby
was that
did the same thing before as well with Carter Star and Denman.
Yeah, and Derek Thompson found out afterwards that Ruby was like, probably wasn't the nicest person to ask because he was obviously sick. But Rachel probably knew 2 or 3 out because Manila Indo's such a strong stayer and she'd ridden him to glory at Cheltenham. She knew that there was nothing she could do probably at that stage. She was riding a horse that wouldn't have the stamina necessarily of an informed Manila Indo. But I'm interested in you, Nina, because do you have any regrets that you didn't go down that professional road looking at what she's achieved? Because I think what she's done for, and I don't want to overstate this, women in race, I think what she's done for racing itself when it needed help, Rachel has been like a queen when racing needed it.
Unbelievable, yeah. I don't regret it. I did think at the time after I'd won on Dabaroon that I had a £5 claim, but it was nearly gone. And I'd asked Noel, I said, I'm thinking of turning, and he said, I've got a lot of bumper horses there. I think Niall Madden at the time was his amateur, and he was turning. So Noel had a lot of
some regrets, I think.
No, definitely not. I do think I made the right choice. I was talking to my dad, I talked to Paul, and they all did say at the time, there was McCoy, Barry, Paul. There was so many top riders at the time, and I felt at the time I would have been grand until I lost my claim. But I felt I really wanted to ride in Cheltenham, and I could definitely try and guarantee that if I kept my profile up as an amateur and riding for Noel as an amateur, I was going to get there every year. And I was happy then, you know, once I was able to compete in Cheltenham. And I feel that being an amateur, we're so lucky we have 3 races to run in, and that way I was very happy and had my success. And maybe if I turned and I'd lost my claim, I might have gone the other way, you know, I mightn't have had the chances. So it was nice that I could to do that. And obviously Rachel's time she was further on in her career, about 25, and she still had her £7 claim, a lot of experience behind her. She slipped in lovely at the time with racing as in a £7 claimer, had a lot of her claims still left to use, and got in with the right trainers, and next thing she just snowballed ahead. And a lot of jockeys retired at the time. Andrew Lynch was gone, and you know, so it just happened, and it was brilliant that she turned at the right time and it just took off. And basically it's great that we can see that women have totally the same level that we can just compete at.
The timing thing in life is incredibly important. You've experienced the same thing where, you know, the biggest successes of your career, the most sustained success came quite late on after you had kind of put yourself in the right position. The Henry de Bromhead's line was like, Rachel has become an overnight success after 10 years of trying.
Yeah.
You know, your sustained period of success came relatively late compared to some of your contemporaries.
Yeah, but in every professional's career, there comes a turning point in their career, and it's if things go right for you or things go wrong for you. And I was having a terrible season in 2007, and next thing I got the call up to ride Silver Birch in the Aintree Grand National, and he won. And that turned my career around. I went on, had a great season. The next season, Barry took the job with Nicky Henderson as stable jockey to him. It opened the gate for me in Jesse's. As Nina said, Andrew Lynch had retired. Henry de Bromhead had no stable jockey, and he was looking for someone to fill that slot as his stable jockey. Rachel wasn't top of his list. He said that the other day in the Racing Post, that Rachel wasn't top of his list. It was Eddie O'Leary who said to him, give her a chance. And he used her that summer a lot, and she rode everything she rode that summer won. And it just kept evolving from there. So every opportunity she's been given, she's taken. But also, when you look back to Cheltenham on I think it was the Wednesday, Rachel had 5 rides, 2 winners and 3 falls, 3 proper falls. She's tough, she's hardy, she's much, much tougher than most of the lads in the way. She can get up and shrug it off and go out in the next race and ride a big winner. She had 3 falls going out in the bumper and decided on herself down the start, no lads wants to make the run, I'll do it. She had that confidence, that confidence and self-belief to go and do that, and that's a huge thing. Not many people can do that.
That's kind of the question I was asking earlier on about the confidence. Like, the whole country seems to have racing confidence in a way, and I very specifically, as trainers, I suspect you have to have some confidence in your horse to pick the race that you're going to go for and go up against some other superstars. But as jockeys, you also have to have confidence in your own ability. Like when you're talking about the horse found the jump 5 or 6 down, you had to make the horse find that jump as well. You had to have the confidence in the horse that it was going to do that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. If you don't have confidence, things start going wrong and you start second guessing yourself. And if there's no confidence there, you definitely don't ride as well.
You need self-belief, and self-belief is fueled by confidence.
Self-belief. Did you have self-belief before you rode Silver Birch?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Where did it come from? If you were struggling, where did that...
I had seen Silver Birch win a Welsh Grand National with Ruby when Ruby was stable jockey to Paul Nicholls, and he'd won a Beecher Chase as well, and I'd ridden him around in a bank race in Punchestown, and then Gordon brought me to the Curragh to ride him work about 10 days before he went to Aintree. And he worked with a horse called Salford City. I think that Neil actually won a grade 2 2-mile hurdle race on in Tipperary. He was a quick horse. And Silver Birch worked all over Salford City. So I said, if the 4.5 miler can go a bit quicker than the 2 miler, he was in unbelievably good form. And
these are always the things we hear about 15 years later, as opposed to the day before the race.
That's exactly it, yeah. But how could we be overly confident? He was a 33 to 1 shot. Gordon hadn't tried a winner in Ireland. I was having an ordinary season. We were hopeful rather than confident, but we were very hopeful he'd finish in the first 5.
You still had confidence in your own ability, and so the horse obviously gives you confidence, right?
Yeah.
But your self-belief was strong, irrespective of the ordinary year that you said you were having.
Yeah, you have to try, and that's racing. Any sports professional is your mental strength has to be as tough as it can be, and some people can't deal with that, and that is tough. But you have to try and be as mentally positive as you can. Barry Geraghty, for me, was unbelievable in that way. He could have a terrible day, come back in on the Tuesday, terrible day on the Tuesday of Cheltenham, come back in on the Wednesday. Well, lads, how are things? Yeah, any chance today I'll win the first and have a good chance in the third. And he just had that huge self-confidence, and that's what you need. You have to have that.
Is it fake? Is it a little bit of it fake?
No, not with Barry, it wasn't.
Right. But
there might be some other people that it is, but not...
I don't mean... Are you faking it till you make it in some ways? You're kind of almost buying forward some good juju in a way.
I think if you start disbelieving in yourself, you're not going to ride as well, as we're trying to say. I think if there's no confidence there, you need to believe in yourself, as Puppy said. Like, if you
but
don't
how do you forget the mistakes, I suppose? That's the question.
Just get on with it.
Yeah.
But
you have to block it out.
You can be taught as well. Like, I remember when we were kids jumping ponies, and we went to a show one day and we had a bad show, and I thought going into the show I was going to win everything, and turned out we didn't. And we were driving out the gate, and I turned to my father and I said, Daddy, I made a mistake. You made a mistake, now forget about it. I don't want to hear about it anymore. You know that mistake, learn from it. We'll go on to Cavan next week, we'll win the class in Cavan next week. And what happened in Cork Showground stays in Cork Showground.
Right.
When you come out of a race course and you have a bad day, what happened in Fairyhouse stays in Fairyhouse.
Right.
Punchestown's on next week.
I think the other thing that's very much underestimated by people who aren't involved in racing is that the horse will feel your lack of confidence. If you're a left winger, you might be able to hide for some of the game. When you have a horse under you, I haven't ridden horses, but the two of them will tell you, if you're giving away that you're kind of diffident on a horse, the horse feels that, and that's not going to help either of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're on about your brother Paul. Like Paul would go on a horse that had a million problems, and Paul Carberry would get on him, and all of a sudden he'd be like, "Actually, this is grand," because Paul Carberry would just put you to sleep. Everything's grand, the most natural thing ever. But if Paul Carberry has no confidence in the horse isn't going to do anything.
Right. I wish you the very best of luck on Monday, whenever the decision gets made about which horse you're on. Are you training a little bit at the moment? What's your involvement in the...
I have a few breezers, and I have hopefully the Point of Points will be back, so I have a Point of Pointer. And I'm getting out my restricted license and to be able to run these stores that we might have to run. So so that's basically.
And is that exciting? Are you as excited about that as you would have been about getting on something on?
Definitely, I'm excited. Yeah, like this is the next chapter, and this is what I want to do, and I want to trade horses, and definitely really excited. I had my restricted license out before, couple of years ago, so I'm able to get it out again. So I'm really looking forward to it.
She'll be a tough woman to ride for.
Don't worry, Pub. We'll get you someday.
We wish you the very best of luck with that. The Fairyhouse Easter Festival takes place, of course, this Saturday, Sunday and Bank Holiday Easter Monday with the Buzz Sports Irish Grand National. It's the richest jumps race in the country with prize money of 400 grand. Racing and Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week. Cheers.